What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My first guest is the Lasso, a producer and multi-instrumentalist whose latest album, 2121, is out now via Mello Music Group. Lasso and I spoke about the importance of film scores, the similarities between beatmakers and directors, and why The Dark Knight might be just a bit overrated. Come fuck with us. What's up, everybody? What's cracking, y'all? This is welcome to the very first episode of Real Notes. I'm Dylan, CineMasai, Dylan Green, whatever you want to call me. I've got a lot of names, I guess. And the first guest I have with me today is somebody that I've admired for the last couple of years, producer and multi-instrumentalist, the Lasso. Man, welcome to the shit. Thank you. Like,
hey, thanks for having me out. Thanks for having me as the inaugural guest.
Man, this is so crazy to me. Like, I'm just like in a chair, in like a fuzzy chair with like a mic stacked on top of books. Like, this is where we're at right now.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I'm out here in Michigan. I'm at my studio right now, and I'm actually surrounded by some crazy film posters, which we'll talk about as the conversation gets going.
Oh wow. Okay, that's fire. So I guess let's take it to the base then. So when was the first time you remember going to the movies?
The first thing I remember right when you asked that question is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like, I don't even know where that, I would have been living in Michigan with my parents, and I have that movie already has this sort of like little to big ratio thing going on, and being like a kid in a theater, and then also adding that, that concept on top of it of like, I remember just being really excited to be in the dark, and the sounds were big, and you kind of like get to disappear. And even as a kid, that's really fun to just kind of like, you're conscious that you're in the dark and it's exciting. And I really do remember that experience really well.
Wow. Do you remember how you felt about the movie at all, or was like the experience most of what was going
on? Well, I think you're going to find as we talk about movies and stuff with me, like I am really focused on that experience aspect. And I don't know if I liked the movie or not, but just the feeling of like, oh man, my parents took me here. It was like a normal day, and now I'm totally absorbed in this other universe. And that's something like that as we talk, like that feeling and that sentiment inspires me a lot with music and stuff too. Just like, where can you transport people, just by quick access to the art.
Right. Yeah, because like at the end of the day, really, like all art should be some kind of transportive, like even if it's just like altering your perspective on a thing that you're like even if you don't necessarily like go on a trip anywhere, but like just having your mental changed about something is like a trip in and of itself. And like,
yeah, and I feel like the movie theater is the most like the place where most like people, it's like, I mean, it's COVID now, but it was like standard practice that like everybody goes to the movie theater and absorbs art. Like it's rare a lot of people go to an art museum. It's rare a lot of people put on music and actively listen, but like everybody was willing to go like sit in the dark and kind of absorb these huge art projects with movies. And that's something I've always thought was just super cool. Like you have some really regular people experiencing some really far out shit at a movie theater, and it's like behind a Target or something. That always was interesting to me. Like, oh man, I'm in this mall, and all of a sudden I'm watching some real intense shit about life or death and tragedy, and I think that's something that's pretty cool.
No, I fuck with that too, because the movie theater that's like 10 minutes away from my house that I've been going to since I was a kid is literally in this, like, I don't know if I'd call it a mall, but it's like this complex where there's like the movie theaters over here. There's a Barnes and Noble like off in the corner. There is a Target like way over on the other side of the complex, and like a Stop and Shop. And there used to be a Blockbuster there. I think it's like a liquor store now. But like, so like, it's crazy to think about that, because because like I'm the type of person who will just like go to a $6 Tuesday and just like
Yeah.
pop up and see anything, you know, like especially pre-COVID, and then especially post-COVID. Like I'm going back to $6 Tuesday as soon as I get a fucking chance. Like it's not even.
Oh, I know. I miss that so much. Just that normalized opportunity to like disappear and get taken somewhere and care about big ideas or small ideas or laughter, whatever the genre may be.
Right. So instead of asking you what your favorite movie is, because you just said that, what's the first movie that made you think about that type of stuff? Like, what was the first movie that, like, I guess for lack of a better phrase, like expanded your mind about that stuff?
Yeah. This is just a generic answer, but I'm just going to be honest, which is like Star Wars, probably, where it um like the music was so big and there were so many settings. And I mean, I would have been probably watching that just on a VHS with my parents at home, but I remember just thinking it felt really like real, and the fact people made it, maybe the costumes and stuff that really just hits you as a kid. Like, you know, it's not aliens, but you're willing to suspend that like disbelief. And when you realize that people made that, it's just something you kind of want to be a part of, and you really admire the whole craft of it. You know, I've always been a fan of like film scores, and I've been like a nerd about the whole thing as much as I've been. You know, I like action movies. I like anything because I'm really just into the whole process that goes into making something like that.
Right.
But Star Wars would be the first one where I'm just like, this seems amazing. Like, a group of regular people like are able to just get together and through makeup and sound and lights and all this kind of like give us this super, super emotive experience.
Do you remember which Star Wars it was? Was it the first one, or was it
Yeah, it probably would have been the first one, but you know, like, I was a little kid, so I just remember Ewoks. So it must have been Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
like,
about to say.
I remember like wanting to live on Endor, you know. Like, you're like, man, if I could be part of the Ewok crew, I'd be happy. Little treehouse room.
Yeah, a little treehouse room, and then you could like find the place where they like make the Ewok puppets in the back, just like, oh yeah, these are, you weren't supposed to see this. Like
Yeah, that's funny.
I love it. But yeah, like if you want to talk about like immersive film scores, like it really doesn't get any, like John Williams was really just like the blueprint with that stuff. Like his music in Star Wars was kind of like, I feel like you could trace so much of film score history back to him. Like, what's it been, like almost 50 years since the first Star Wars came out? Like,
I know, that's crazy to think, and just all the movies he's done since then. Yeah, he's almost so ubiquitous and incredible. Like, why nobody ever really talk about him, but it is kind of interesting. I was thinking about him recently because I realized he scored Home Alone. You know, this last Christmas I was watching Home Alone, and you're just, that's a great score. Yeah, he really did kind of remake that blueprint. I'd say prior to that, it would be like Bernard Herrmann to me, who did all the like Hitchcock stuff. Like, that was kind of this real, like, you know, at least cooler film score. I mean, there's a lot of sappy shit from like early Hollywood days, but like from Bernard Herrmann to me, it goes kind of Ennio Morricone with the Western stuff. But then, yeah, you kind of jump to John Williams, is like, he takes that old Hollywood, big grandiose orchestral thing, but yeah, it just kind of does it in a way that, as corny as some of it is, it's really just incredible and powerful music.
Yeah, really. Like, it's just so, like, it's really amazing to see how people to see how film score composers can just like capture, they can just capture emotion in sound. Like one of the, like you mentioned the guy who does the Hitchcock scores. The one that always comes to mind for me is Psycho, and like that bit, and like that bit in Psycho. I forget when in the movie it happens, but the little do 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 do, like the shit that Busta Rhymes for Give Me Some More, like just seeing seeing someone like Busta Rhymes kind of grab and or I can't remember who produced the song. Oh, it's gonna kill me. But like whoever produced "Give Me Some More," like heard what they did with that song, and we're like, I want somebody to rap over this. Like, just
yeah. That's a whole topic unto itself in your podcast. Really, is just like beats that sample film scores, because you think about people who are literally employed to kind of like really zero on a super specific feeling and emotion would be like film scores. And I often think the same thing about beat makers, like really good beat makers to me, because the loop can be so short. It's not like you're telling a whole story like a piece of symphonic music. A beat maker kind of tells you like tons of info about one really specific thing. And I think film scores kind of do that too. It's like this scene was about this really distinct, interpersonal interaction. So yeah, there's a lot to be sampled there and flipped. And yeah, God, right. Give Me Some More is just, I mean, and like that song's so sinister and just its whole like feeling. And you often would accredit that to his flow, but I mean, that sample's right there with setting the mood too.
Yeah, it's just like the violins feel like it doesn't feel like somebody's playing it with the bow. It feels like somebody's like grinding the violin strings against like the corner of like a desk, just like like it's just so intense.
Oh, totally. And I think that speaks to like film scoring is a place where, unlike pop music, like you're encouraged to do like anything can happen with sound. It's not like we need this to fit in the context of a good hook or something. Like you can bang on a wall. People are using the most far out modular synthesizers. Like sound design is the cutting edge of sound manipulation. And so like you're like, oftentimes I think in film scores, you do have people using traditional instruments and applying like unique techniques, like hitting them with weird shit, and I think beat making is another place that happens too, where like anything goes, like doesn't matter if Flying Lotus is, hitting a quarter on a table, for the hi-hat, like that's right. Any sound is possible. And I think a lot of that happens in film scoring too. You have your stereotypical 1950s Foley guy, like popping a balloon and
right.
whatever,
dropping a watermelon from like 20 feet up, like
but it's like if it fits the the emotion, like, or fits the purpose of the sound, the movie, hey, is good.
Yeah, if it would like the first time not the first time. Somebody shared a video on Twitter, it must have been like a year and a half ago, of like a sound editor like making all the sounds for a movie. Like there was like a scene where he had to like recreate a bone breaking, and he just like he had like a big thing of bok choy and just like twisted it real fast, just like
oh nice,
just to brilliant. Like yeah, just like seeing stuff, like because you hear stories about it, but it's always so different when you actually watch someone do it and then just think about or even this is kind of different, but like if you see like an actor recording audio over like a fight scene, like in a studio, as opposed to doing it in the thing. Like they shared, Hugh Jackman shared a video of him like recording all like cool. The grunts and shit for Wolverine and Logan. And like, it's just intense. It's just intense. It's just really intense.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Speaking of which, I was just talking about Logan. That's a great movie.
Logan is a great movie.
Like, yeah, that's like someone was like, "What's the best Marvel movie?" the other day. I was like, "Does Logan count?" Because that's probably better than. It's not quite. It's kind of a Marvel movie.
It is like it definitely is. It's like you don't even need to figure out where it fits into the MCU, because it doesn't. But like it's just a good movie, and like Wolverine and the X-Men are like so ingrained in the way like Americans watch movies. They're like. Yeah, and it's also like the most classically, like, because like when I saw it, I loved it, but I was worried that a whole bunch of people were gonna be like, I mean, like, I'm not trying to put this on you, but like I know a lot of people were like, yeah, I like this movie because it's like the least superhero-y and like they don't really have powers like that. And like it feels like a real movie. And I'm like, come on, bro. Like
I just think back to like, I didn't even come at it from the angle of what doesn't feel like CGI fatigue. And I just have so many memories of going to the theater and seeing an Avengers movie and you're like leave and you're just kind of tired and shit. Like, like you're saying, like I do, Logan did have the pace of a film instead of like maybe less of the video game feeling that I think the MCU especially turned into the final years of it. It just got so sky battled out sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like, and it's also really interesting considering that like, think about where the X-Men started, the movies at least, like they started out in that same plane, but in like 2000 early 2000s mode with everyone decked out in the black rubber and on like the terrible fake looking plane, and then just to flip those like not just the characters but the actors who played them and to like show them in this like almost by comparison like minimalist look. It's just so, it was really cool to see them flip it in that regard and just to like and to kind of like tear it down. And like it's basically a western, like the movie is basically,
you're right.
And like because like there's plenty of action, but it's just all of it is like so grisly and pared down and like not flashy, I guess, for lack of a better word. And like I really did appreciate that.
Yeah, it kind of has the samurai movie thing too, I think, a little bit in that sense too, with like the young person and the older mentor, and it's kind of conceptual as opposed to maybe visual. But I don't know, there's some crazy fight scenes in that shit too though.
Yeah. The first scene with X-23, I don't remember her character's name. That's gonna kill me too. But like the first fight scene with her and Logan, like in the desert, and she just like stabbed dude in the oof. Just like the choreography alone is just like, ugh.
Yeah, that's a cool movie. It just kind of re-hit my radar recently. It's like I really did like that one.
Yeah, I gotta watch that again. It's been a minute. Like I caught a piece of it like maybe 8 months ago. It was the scene where he was where Professor X was fucking with everyone's head and he had to use his claws to get through the through the hallway and like killed everything. Yeah. Just really, really
heavy
stuff. Like, yeah. So to kind of bring it back to music and like the idea of like sound manipulation and film scoring for you personally, when did you first start making music? Like when did you when did you first start making music?
Yeah, I like as a kid, I was just lucky to grow up in a time and in a place where I'm privileged to have music in schools in a way that was like gave me like a start. It wasn't like I didn't continue. I did maybe 5 or 6 years of school band, but it wasn't where my passion was with music, but it kind of just gave you access to some fundamental stuff to kind of like get it moving. So even in that sense, like the first shit they had you play was like Jurassic Park and stuff. I feel like the era I was growing up, it's like, let's get the kids on board, man. Teach them Jurassic Park. It's about the easiest melody on earth, and you could hum it over any. It's almost like modal in this way. It could be like placed over anything, the Jurassic Park theme, and it works. It could be contextualized in a certain way. So yeah, I just started in that kind of orchestral setting. So I think, they hook kids with like film music, certainly in like school band programs.
Definitely. What was the first instrument you played?
Clarinet.
Like my mom.
yeah, a lot of mom. I think my mom played clarinet too. I still play the clarinet regularly. I'm hoping to get. It's something I'm trying to get better at.
Mm-hmm. Like
again.
So like when you were in band, was that the only instrument you were playing, or was it like a mix of stuff?
Well, yeah, clarinet's where I started, and then I switched over to bass clarinet, which was I don't know, allowed you to kind of like, I think they gave it to someone who was good at the clarinet, but you're not like the best, because they need that person on the clarinet. But it was like, okay, this dude's passionate about it. Let's kind of let him go off into this weird world. So, but I learned how to play tuba, trombone, clarinet, and bass clarinet, and saxophone by the time I was out of high school, just by being a band nerd, kind of. I never did the marching band thing, but I did jazz band and like orchestra.
Nice. That's really beautiful. Like there's something about music in school that's like so special, and just like being able to, it's kind of like you were saying before, like being able to have access to instruments and shit like so young, and just like have it be there. It's like something that we can almost take for granted, and just like so many like professional musicians started playing in school. Like if they didn't have instruments at home, it was in
school or church. Yeah.
Or church. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and I'd say, you know, I mean, I guess it depends where and who you are as far as church, but in many ways, like there's certain, you know, churches that are probably given the best, most relevant musical education. I mean, that's the problem with school band, is like you can turn it into something, which I did because I had a lot of passion for it, but there's probably other people who maybe they could have been great at it, but it's such a sterile environment. Do you know what I'm saying? Where some churches you can go to and they're playing something that's pretty close to like, whether you agree with the content or anything, it's like the music's probably more relevant because they're trying to get people to come back every week. They don't want to hear terrible music and come to church every week, you know? Band, it's like you have to be there. So you get these kind of dinosaurs leading the way in terms of what you're going to learn about.
Yeah, and like you can really tell when someone isn't passionate. Like I was really lucky coming up in high school because I had an incredibly passionate music teacher. I was in choir. My choir teacher, Mr. Ennis, was probably like one of the most passionate people I've ever met in my life.
That's awesome.
He was just like super dedicated, and like he ran like 4 different choirs, and like he always had students in his office to like record music. Like I can't tell you how many people I grew up with who started making music. It was because of him. Like,
dude, it's band teachers, or like high school teachers, I'll just say, with a passion in general, are some of the should be some of the most celebrated people, because I know what you're saying. I hear about a lot of, there's like sort of these band teachers who leave legacies. I think theater programs have that sometimes too, where there would be like a theater teacher who really over a decade like impacts like hundreds of kids in terms of like their first time expressing themselves in a way that's like, you know, with the arts or something.
Totally. Yeah. And then like that also goes double for church, to bring it back. Like church is it's just such a communal space, and music is like, we treat it like it's intimate because it can be, but like at the end of the day, music is something incredibly communal. And like if you can't really connect with it on that level, then like you said, you're gonna be bored to tears just like sitting in the pews. Because that's how I was when I used to go to church. I went to a church for a very brief time when I was a kid. That was like, it had beautiful music, and that's really the one thing I remember about sitting in the pews, was hearing the music, hearing people sing, and just like there's just something magnetizing about gospel that's just like you said with the content. Like you don't have to agree with the content to just like appreciate how fucking gorgeous gospel music is. Like it's just pulled in so many people, and it's like really so foundational to so many people's musical just like education and just like general taste. Like that's some of the first music that people hear when they come up.
Yeah, and I the distinction's got to be made. That's a reality too. That's way cooler for Black Americans, because like there's like some of the worst music on earth is coming from like Midwestern white churches. Let me confirm that. You know,
you're not lying,
and this could, with the school thing too. This kind of brings me back of like to John Williams, where it's like, God bless John Williams, because he gave like classical, like this concept of an orchestra, some like relevant music to play. Because the biggest problem with band programs, from whether they're for kids to orchestras as adults, is they're playing this just totally dated music. I mean, the most kids, the first exposure, or maybe the only opportunity they ever have to play an instrument, is their like here, play Ode to Joy or something, and some
Right.
just like totally irrelevant 100-year-old thing, and that's just not the way it has to be. You can there's so many, there's melodies everywhere that can encourage people to be interested in these things. So the John Williams certainly, I think, has given that like orchestras life in the last 30 to 40 years, because that music's fun to play.
Yeah.
I'd rather play that than Beethoven. I mean,
Right.
who the hell, what sixth grader wants to play Beethoven? And that's what most, I don't know why that's still the standard, but it really is. But film music does get this place, I think, in the instrument education. That's cool.
Right. Like, especially something like Star Wars, because like whether it's the theme song or the death march or like what,
Yeah.
like I guarantee you that if you were to ask somebody, if you were to ask somebody a very specific question of either like hum me some Beethoven or hum me the Darth Vader death march, like they're gonna do the Darth Vader death march immediately. It just sticks in your brain. Like,
Yeah. And I think, you know, we got to get back to movies, but I mean, like, as far as just keeping that alive in schools too, it's like, pick any genre, there's probably a 3-note hook that could really make that music relevant to kids. And not, I don't know, I look at the violin sometimes and I'm like, man, you can do anything with the violin, but we ask people to do the weirdest shit, the most specific shit with it.
right.
like here, play one of 3 melodies that for some reason we've decided to need to live on. Man, just teach them the Imperial Death March first, and
Exactly.
let's start changing our culture there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at least start there. Like, so as you get older and you start taking music more seriously as a career, like was there ever a period of time when you started to consciously, I mean, like, you kind of already like answered this, I like, in a way, but was there ever a period of time before now that you like consciously linked the way film, like the way film and music work together in your head?
Yeah, I'm gonna real specifically, I think the movies that like hit me with that are the director of like Paul Thomas Anderson's movies. Specifically, I'll just say like Punch Drunk Love. Like, I don't necessarily love that movie, but like the way music is used in it was really impactful to me when I saw it. You know, it's just some like Adam Sandler art movie or whatever. But if you were to go back and watch that, the percussion in that movie is insane. It's just this incredible score, and then it kind of mixes in this weird sort of like big Hollywood harp kind of music too. But I think I must have seen that when I was in early high school. So I was already really, really into music and a music nerd kind of person. So when you hear really crazy, sophisticated music like that, and it was all made by one person, John Bryant. So I always like stuff that it's like, oh, cool, this is this huge piece of music, but just like one guy made it at his little studio. So that kind of like opened my world. And he's a record producer too, and he worked on Kanye records, like I mean, John Bryant's work, you know, he did those Mac Miller. He did that one, all the stuff with Mac Miller towards the end of his life, and the posthumous one.
Yeah, he did Circles. Like, yeah, I was, because I had no idea. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but like that was I had no idea that John Bryant did the score for Punch Drunk Love. That's
and
wow.
He did the score for Magnolia and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, that one I knew.
Yeah. So he had that, in which, you know, that has a whole backdoor with the J Electronica stuff to just like hip hop, because that so that was the first time. And I still have this ambition. I've done some film scoring, but that was when I got obsessed with film scoring. It kind of gave me this career path that I'm still unfolding, and which is like, you can produce records and you can make like art music, you can make film music. And John Bryan was like sort of an early influence to me of like, I saw someone who just producing didn't just mean songs, it meant like everything.
Right.
And so that was really like inspirational to me. And I was struck by the music in that movie, looked up his name and started connecting the dots. And then that was pre him producing Kanye. So it was super exciting when I was like, oh shit, now this like film score like multi-instrumentalist guy like is getting to like play with like, you know, Kanye. So that probably had a big impact on me, you know, just being like, oh, all these things can exist in one person.
Right. I can imagine because I know that, like, I think I first became really conscious of that when I saw like Pharrell doing his thing with like the Despicable Me movies, and like
Yeah.
and even like the run that Trent Reznor has been on for the last like decade of scoring movies.
Uh-huh.
Like, just like I liked Nine Inch Nails growing up, but like I didn't start paying attention to Trent Reznor until I was like, oh, like this Social Network score is crazy. Like, oh, he did another movie score like really recently. Oh, what was
He
it?
just did Soul. That I know that
It was
puts out a
Soul.
lot.
That was it. It was
Yeah.
Soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, cause I had mixed feelings about the movie as a whole, but the score, him and John Batiste, like, get out of here,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I feel the same way. Like the best parts of Nine Inch Nails sounds are now just distilled into his scores. Like it's almost like if you muted the drums and the vocals and you kept the like synths and stuff and some of the percussion textures. Like Trent Reznor's always been a phenomenal producer, but I just can't, the songwriting and the general taste of Nine Inch Nails, just it's not for me. But like the scores do give me a way to kind of hear what he does as a producer in a fresher light.
right. It's just a way. It's just a way to like. It's just a way to create this experience. Like, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's about like giving people an experience, and I feel like that's what separates somebody who just like wants to make a cool song, or who just like wants to make fire beats, from somebody who's like trying to create an experience. And it seems like that's something that's really important to you, and it comes through so vividly in your music, like especially this 2121 album, man. Like, because you were talking to me a little while back about how the experience of filmmaking was kind of like in the front of your mind while you were crafting this album. So kind of
Mm.
talk to me about that a bit, and like how film kind of factored into the creation of 2121.
Yeah. I think just the starting point for that would be just like sci-fi, and both the concepts of sci-fi and some of the creation processes. So like on the filmmaking side, it would be just like the ensemble cast kind of thing. Like 2121 has a huge amount of people working on it, and that's something that's more common, I think, in film than it is in music, to be like, okay, I'm going to create a thing where there's like a lot of people in it, and there's voices that are more common, and then there's side characters and stuff. Like I think you get that in some great rap albums with features and stuff. Like they kind of give you that sense of like there's main characters and there's plot and setting and stuff. So
Right.
for me, I thought a lot about like, how do movies handle like a lot of personalities, both as creators and as characters, you know? Because like I have these main sort of voices that ride the whole movie with me, and then you're kind of meeting people along the way, and people show back up or like disappear for part of the album. So that was just something I think I got a lot. I watched like movies to kind of get a balance for like making sure when I did bring in guests, like the content was written for them as performers. You know, I gave them roles that fit them. I didn't just ask them to totally come over to do this thing they're not accustomed to. So, you know, I just think about any sort of ensemble in a movie and how those are balanced well. Like I know this isn't film, but I think like Atlanta or something. There's a recent show where I was like, oh, there's this kind of like ensemble cast. And there was so much like balance to those characters. And like there's clearly main characters, but they're not always the most important.
Right.
And so like that was one thing I wanted to have in my album that just kind of relates to filmmaking in that sense of like, how do you balance a big ensemble?
Right. Yeah. Like, and like, it doesn't even really have to be film, because like whether you're talking about film or TV or like whatever we want to call stuff on streaming, like those are all filmmaking techniques. And like Atlanta is a really great example, especially because like there are so many characters on, like it's not just an ensemble. It's like every episode will have at least one character that you never see again. They just show up for that one, and like, and like,
Right.
and like you expect to see them again, like the Zan dude, like the dude who's like the IG famous fucking like texts everybody in a 36 person like
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna be like a recurring villain in the show when the show first came out, and then you never see him again. I'm like, so what happened? It's just like these people just like pop in and out of your life, and then they're just here today, gone tomorrow, and like that felt so. I hope I'm not getting too off topic, but like that kind of felt that made Atlanta feel realer to me, because like people can just kind of come into your life and like have this crazy impact and then just leave and be gone. And like you could even like connect that to working with some of the people on this album, like having like Il Camille on No Illusions, or like having Fat Tony show up for a song, but then having someone like I'm like A Billy Free just like show up and like be this constant presence throughout the album. Like I think that's dope. I think that's tight.
Yeah, that was my, idea going into this project. Like, and then I'm gonna get to the sci-fi movie content. Was just like, it was important to me to have like, okay, it's like when you're in hip hop as a producer, eventually you want to do like a lot of features and stuff. Like that's such, who doesn't want to like have people they're into work with them,
Right, of course, yeah.
But for me, I'm operating in this way where I make music, or so I've been told. It's like I just don't have beats now. I mean, I have an infinite amount of beats, but it's hard for me to just email someone something like lay 16 down on this and shoot it back to me. Like I get stuff that's unreleasable because you're like, the music feels like something. And even if they're great 16 bars, it's just, they need to go somewhere else with my songs. So that led me to be like, I gotta have stars of this album. And so like A Billy Free and Rachel Eve, and then the sax player, the sax squatch, and the cellist Jordan Hamilton, like they kind of became the stars so that I could write a piece of music that could have features. That's how I kind of like started this whole project. Was I want to have a lot of features, but in order to have features, you got to have stars. And I'm the director. I'm not the star.
Right. So what does that mean to you to like be, because I'm really happy you made that connection. Like the connection between being a producer, a music producer, and like being a director, because that's really what this feels like. Like this is your vision that people are helping you act out. Or yeah, like it's a little more complicated than that, but like, yeah.
No, it's true. It's really true. And like, and for better or for worse, once you start down these roads, like a movie or an album, like you're in it and you live in that world until you complete it, if you're going to complete it. And the world might not, it's funny, you like live in these things, the hugest thing to you, because it's hard to make albums, it's hard to make movies, and then people might not like it even, or whatever. And that's this funny thing. But like while you're at it, thankfully I don't necessarily care if people like my music or not. It's more about like, I'm acknowledging the fact that it's like, it's your existence when you're making it. Like I had a concept and I had to go out into the world and find people and get them to commit to like working on this and putting in time and passion and energy. And that's your whole world when you're doing one of these massive like projects. And so that connection to being a director, I think, is like, I'm ultimately not going to be the one. I'm not going to be the character that maybe you immediately connect to in the movie or in the album. Like, you're probably more emotionally going to connect to the content of the lyrics and the voice of the singers. But like, I feel I think a lot of, I'm a huge fan of like cinematography. And I think because you do a lot of that as an engineer and as an instrumentalist, you kind of like pick what the colors and the textures are. And then as a writer, I write the music in terms of like, I'm playing all the core instruments on the record, the drums, the guitars, the keys, some of the basses. And so you're really setting the scene. You're writing where does the movie happen? Where's the location? You know, what's the coloring and the tone of the movie? But then you're casting people to kind of like walk through that world. And those are who I think the features and the singers are. So
Right.
Lando's really who taught me how to do that. Like that's when music changed to being this more director kind of thing. Cause like Lando wanted me to kind of paint these huge landscape paintings, and then he got to go like walk through them as like a character. That's how I look back at Lando and my collaboration. So he kind of distinguished that to me, and I'm continuing to add, and this is the first time I've done it like as an ensemble thing, but that started with Lando for me.
Right. I'm once again really happy you brought that up because I was like that's but I want to come back to that later because that's like there's like a whole section that I want to run through all your collaboration projects, like especially the stuff with Lance. Like so but because I'm not 100% sure because I'm not 100% sure exactly how you produce a record because your songs always like everything sounds so unique. Like I know you play all the instruments, but like walk me through the process of like you actually making a song. Like
Yeah.
like from conception to completion.
Yeah, it's probably simpler than it seems. Like for me, the first step is like a pulse or like a BPM. Like I am always starting with like tempo because it's like what mood am I in? Do I want to make something fast or slow? Which just is a simple way to start. And then it's like groove from there. So the next thing I'm going to do is play drums on it or program drums or chop something up, whatever you need to do to make your drum was your pulse. So I kind of take that a little way, and then it's like it doesn't matter if you have a great drum beat that's 128 BPM or whatever 142. It's like say it's just like a footwork drum beat. Well, now it could be the mood could be anything then, based upon the tonal aspects. So the actual like, because if you just have rhythm, you know, that could be a cool kind of music. But then, you know, the next thing then I'll do is just like, yeah, write a bass line or a keyboard part. And then that's all one process that like, I pretty much go from like nothing to like what you hear on a record, other than the vocal and any extra instrumentation, like at most a day, but like usually 3 to 5 hours or something, you know? Right. And then I just make tons of those. So I have this huge wealth of moods of music at any time of like, because I'm doing that every day. So if it takes me 4 hours, maybe I'm going to get 2 in a day, you know, 2 if beats or whatever you want to call them, you know, they're sketches essentially. Like they can be developed further or they can be left. Sometimes you get it all the way done at once, but usually it's kind of this like 70% done thing. Mm-hmm. Then at that point, it's like, if it's an instrumental track, you know, you find a way to finish it from there, whether that's like you put a melody in with an instrument or you're making a weirder kind of music. If it's a vocalist, you know, since we're talking about 2121, I had this, let's connect it back then, because this is how I finish a track. Okay, cool. I got 50 instrumentals. They're all kind of like sci-fi-ish funk, etc. beats, for just a simple way to put this project. Well, then it's like, well, what's the album going to be about, you know? And for me, that's where sci-fi movies came in, and like just having that imprint in my head, whether the movie went to a good place or whether it's Alien or it's Star Wars, this concept of just like you kind of have a group of people traveling to an unknown like destination or something, and how does like the collective energy of that change the course, you know, and the destination. And you could apply that metaphor to social things that are happening in the world. You can make it totally psychedelic, whatever you want. But that's where the album started for me. It was like, hey, I'm going to make this big ensemble album. I got all these instrumentals now. I want this album to be about collective change in a sort of sci-fi psychedelic way. So maybe I wrote a really simple, like 3-sentence piece of text that kind of outlined something real spaced out. Like it probably wasn't even in sentence form.
Right.
to some art writing. And then I started to just go through the record, and I would send the same thing to everyone, any song. I'd be like, hit up Fat Tony, and I'm like, I'm making this record. This is what it's about. Here's some like writing to kind of shape your mindset on it. And then he might give me a verse back. So now I got a beat that I like because I've already produced it. I already passed the test of like it got sent out of my studio. Right. So the music's cool. Now I got like a crazy Fat Tony verse. Now it's like it needs a hook. Well, I got these songwriting partners in Rachel and Billy I can send a track to. So now not only is my plot of the album like collective change, but like I'm getting these end products where it's like nobody really thought of the Abyss. I just like the song with Fat Tony. Like it's such a tightly written pop song in some ways. It has a bridge, it has a hook, and like no one wrote that. It was never like, let's have a pop song structure over this beat. It's just kind of like I cast the right people and I had a topic that they could fit in. And then, you know, the final step for me when this album was bringing in Saxsquatch and Jordan and orchestrating, kind of like weaving in between the singers with those instruments.
And see, I'm not gonna lie, because when I first heard this project, I didn't initially think about sci-fi. Like,
yeah, it's not heavy-handed in that. I think it's sci-fi in the sense of, like I said, I had that concept of like a group of people together going somewhere, you know.
No, totally. And that's almost like the basis of what sci-fi is. Like science fiction is so crazy because it's such a broad, like there's no one way to define what sci-fi is, right? Like it could be Alien, it could be something like Ex Machina, the Android movie. It could be something like Contagion. Like Spielberg's Contagion, like
totally.
That's like all, and then you would try to apply that to rap. Like, you know, you look at like for me, like the kind of like Rosetta Stones for that type of stuff for me have always been stuff like Deltron 3030,
totally,
and like just everything that like Missy Elliott did, you know, like, and just everything, and like there's so many different examples, but I think that really speaks to how I think that speaks to where, because like even though 2121 isn't heavy-handed with it, I think that speaks to where it sits within the sci-fi continuum, because it just like sci-fi can really just like as long as it has some sort of exploratory or like scientific bent, like the shit's gonna fit somewhere. Like that's one of the beautiful things about science fiction as a genre to me.
Totally. It's not like it's not super futuristic or anything, like in the way like a Shabazz Palaces record can be really like futuristic moments in their like sci-fi stuff. I literally do think about that a lot, like that metaphor, and like with all my projects, like whether it's Small Bills or like this 2121 crew, like making an album is like I always say this to my collaborators, like after we make the first one, we built the spaceship now. That was fucking hard, but now we built it. Like, are we going to go fly it around and do dope shit with it? Or are we going to park it in the garage? Because like the hard part is building the spaceship, you know? Yeah. And so this project, maybe it's more was like a building a spaceship together than it was flying anywhere. I mean, and that's just because we're new collaborators, you know, like
right.
Lando and I got to build a ship and fly it around, I think, more than I've had the opportunity with anyone else in like rap.
Right. And sometimes that destination can be the journey, which is like which is beautiful in and of itself. But since you brought Lando back up, like because that's where I first got put on to who you were as a person and a musician. So I guess like to kind of thread in this idea of like the producer as a director, like talk to me about your early work with Lando and like kind of expand on what you were saying before about how he made you think about this directorial aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a director writer, Lando's the greatest, like as a young director writer, like now you have like someone who wants to be a star, like in a certain sense. And I'm not using that in a derogatory way. Like Lando was someone who's like, I'm ready to carry the weight of like a narrative. Cause I met him, he's still working on For Mark Your Son, but I wasn't, I wasn't involved in that record, but it's like, that was kind of where he was at. And so I was hearing that record years before it was out, because it came out, I don't know, he got signed to Mello, whatever. It took a little while for that record to get out. But you hear that record, and you're like, oh, this guy's a star.
Right.
It's like the first Lando record. And you're like, oh, he has a personality. He can kind of do this, like, he came up with a character, and he came up with an album with it and stuff. So I didn't know people were going to get into Lando at the time that I met him, like I assumed they would, because I saw what a lot of people did. I was like, oh shit, like what a great guy to like start writing movies for, if we're just going to keep the metaphor. Because I'm like, I could put him in a lot of situations, and he's gonna like give you really unique, he's a great character in a lot of different situations, and he wanted to go a lot of different places.
Right. And I remember when For Mark Your Son came out too, because like that was when I was like really, I had like just started my obsession with Mello, and I was like really looking into everything, and I heard For Mark Your Son, and I knew that anybody who can put songs like Floating to Nowhere and Coroner on the same album and not have it sound like, why are these two songs on the same project? Like he tied everything together so beautifully, and I was like, yeah, like you said, this kid's a star. Like not even a kid, like we're the same age. Like yeah, I'll be like, bro is a star. Like I knew it from men. Like
yeah, that was such a human project too, like yeah, what a great debut, and like it's funny, like I didn't really know like he was gonna get signed to Mello, or that people would ever, like, you go look at how many people have streamed For Mark Your Son, and it has just like, I mean, that album must have over 10 million streams together just on Spotify. It's been streamed so much, and I would never have thought that when I first heard it, but I did think, yo, this dude's amazing. Like if you could tell me he'll have 10 million streams, I bet I'd say, yeah, you're right. Like, you're right. Like, I just didn't know you, because you just met him. I just met him at like 10 people were at the show he was at when I met him. And I was like, whoa, it's just local music shit, but you're like, so I would say my first part of working with Lando too is like, I would say almost maybe he was the writer at first, and he just hired me to be a director, cinematographer kind of person. Like so Boy You Spoke to the Wind, that a lot of that record was going before For Mark Your Son was out. So I think we got to know each other. He saw what I was doing, and he was like, oh, we wanted the same thing. Let's make hip hop, but let's have it be just a little more cinematic. And Boy You Spoke to the Wind was the story he had. And he was like, why don't you, engineer it and produce it and compose, all these holes that I don't have. Because I think there's a couple tracks I didn't produce on that record, or I co-produced them. So he had a little bit started. So he's kind of like, here's the plot of this thing. And so that was a really fun project for me, because it's not music I would have written on my own necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of myself in there, but it really, I owe a lot of where I've gone with my sound to him starting there with me with The Boy You Spoke to the Wind.
Mm-hmm. Like The King of Salem is one of my favorite songs. You guys,
I didn't produce that.
Oh, you didn't? Oh shit.
No, that track's nasty. That's the best track on that record. So that's like the thing where it's like, I had such an interesting role, but I engineered that, and I kind of, like I said, I was hired to be this sort of cinematographer too, and I have no ego in that. Like, I've never claimed like I said, like the first thing I say about The Boy Who Spoke to the Wind is like, I didn't really produce that whole record, and the stuff I did produce is a really funny take on my sound, because I was really brought in of like, here's the King of Salem. There were no vocals, and the beat was amazing, but it wasn't done by any means like with what Lando wanted to do with it. It was like we had to kind of like, I didn't even play any instruments or anything, but I was good at turning ideas into songs.
Right.
Like I was the first talent I told Lando the night I met him. It was like, I have no ego. I don't need to write the music or anything. I'm good at I'm good at making songs. Like you should utilize my talents. And I got really nice gear right now, better gear than you're probably working on, or at least gear that you can access creatively, not just to cut vocals quick and leave. Because that's the thing, like the King of Salem is a complex track. Like that's a really multi-part vocal arrangement. The vocal doesn't just like start and loop to the end of the song. Here's the chorus, here's the hook, here's the chorus, here's the hook. It's like it starts here and it goes a bunch of places and it ends over here and you never go back to anything. So that was my job of like, he wanted to do that kind of stuff. And it was like, cool, well, let me help you kind of just do a clean, like let's figure this out.
Right. So speaking of ego, talk to me about moving into Black Ego and like really working on like fully crafting a project with him, not just in the engineering sense.
Yeah. Well, Black Ego is really interesting. Like, you know, I just had so much momentum as an artist in my day-to-day life going into that era with Lando. Like whether I was working with Lando or not, it's kind of when I realized I re-hit 10,000 hours. Like I kind of in like 2015 was like, I'm going to kind of like step back from what I've been doing and rethink my musicianship. And I started fresh again. So by the time we got to Black Ego, I was just like flowing. And once again, like, that was less of a cinematic piece to me than more of a very musician-based project of like, Lando had evolved so much as a singer. Like you hear him sing on Corner to what some of the stuff he's singing on Black Ego, and he's clearly a more skilled singer. So on that project, he's like, we need to have more music references, I think was the name of that project. Like there's going to be funk elements and like, he just wanted to try more stuff musically, which fit where I was at that point where it's like, give me ideas. I have so much energy to produce. And that album was done really fast. I was going to have to move back to Michigan because of some family shit. So it's like, we got 3 months. Like, what are we going to do? And that was really his, once again, like I produced and wrote all the music, but he kind of had the vision for what the whole feel would be.
Right. I mean, like, it sounds to me like you should be giving yourself a little more credit because it sounds like y'all were co-directors. Like that's what the
yeah.
Right now.
But like Black Ego, for example, is like I'm just a white Midwestern dude, and that doesn't mean I can't be a sounding board for any conceptual thing when you're in the studio with people. Like, first of all, I'm never gonna be like, tell me about your pain or something. Like it's not like that's why I distinguish that too, is like Lando's talking a lot about things that have to do with, you know, what he experienced as a Black man. And like, I would never write that thing, you know, but I'm a great person to bring in as like a cinematographer director in terms of just like give you a lot of tools and avenues to help you express that thing.
No.
And I'm able to do that because I've been inspired by directors, because I think collaboration is what has brought me into hip hop. But like hip hop is secondhand to me. Like I make no claims otherwise, but I have a place in this world because I'm an open-minded collaborator, and you can pitch me a project and I can bring a lot of passion to it.
Right. And yeah, I appreciate you making that distinction too. Because like Black Ego is a project that's so, it's in the title, like it's so centered around like what Blackness means to him and how he reacts within all of that. So but just like in general, like even forgetting that, like it just seems like the two of you, like I almost attribute it to like somebody who makes a TV show. Like if it's like two people who created a TV show, right? And
yeah,
and like you have like the hands and the ability of two people, but your minds are in sync. Like your creative minds are like rolling on the same shit. and like that's something
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, that's the magic of the one producer, one vocalist kind of collaboration. And it's something you don't get to pick. Like, you can choose, like, I want to work with someone, but like it only works when it works, and it takes just so much time to get there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just be like, I could want to produce for any one of my hero or any someone I could think I have a sound for someone, but you have to build a sound with someone if it's really gonna. And that doesn't mean it's gonna sell a lot of records. That just might mean it's satisfying. You know, it's more satisfying than. So that's how I feel with the Lando thing. It was such an opportunity to do what you said, like, come like write this show with me, you know, come create this thing and do it for a while. And yeah, it was awesome, man. Like, Lance is one of my best friends still, and I thought, and like, there's more music to come with it. He and I am sure, but it was, especially now with COVID, where everything's so distant. Like, that was such an era of music that had to do with, we were just like sitting in my apartment all the time making all that shit. So
Just like that intimate nature of all of it, and like the music is so explosive, but it's like really intimate on top of all of that. And like, and so I kind of want to work through all these people that you've done this exact thing with, because you know Lance isn't the only one. And also like, and yeah, like shout out to Lando, man. Like, Lando Chill's one of my favorites. He's been one of my favorites for a minute. Yeah, he's just like, I remember when I met you guys at the, was it the Black Ego show? Was it Black Ego or Maya You? I don't remember which one.
Yeah, Black Ego. It's the night I met Elucid too.
Okay. Wow. Right. You told me.
Yeah. It's a big night. That's a big nice night in my life. Jesus. Yeah. Black Ego release show. And yeah, cool. Yeah. Let's run them down. Yeah. Cause I mean, just going into that, I mean, I think that's the skill I learned with Lando, and how the last few years of my career has played out, has been this sort of director kind of concept.
Right. So, yeah, talk to me about working with Spiritual on like you guys' joint.
Yeah, that starts with Black Ego too, because he's featured on Black Ego, and that's just for an era I was living down in Tucson. My brother was living down there, so it's like my best friend. I was either hanging with Lando or I was hanging with my brother. And my brother moved. I was like, I need some new friends, and I kind of started just hanging with the younger like rap dudes down in Tucson, Spiritual, DJ Q, Ray, and so Spiritual. First time I met him, someone's like, he was in high school when we started hanging out, I think, which is far out, or maybe he was just graduated, but he might have been in high school. And someone's like, dude, his first record has 110 songs on it. I was like, what? And I was like, it's like, this sounds like the kind of dude I want to hang out with, man. I got too many songs too, you know, like I can relate to this guy. Like, we just like hit it off instantly. You know, all those dudes down there, they was like, it really changed my life, getting to know the world through, getting to see their perspective on the world and hip hop and stuff. So in the back of my head was like, he's this young dude down in Tucson. Like, as soon as we can get some money together, he's got to fly up to Detroit and just like hang out with me, just because we're friends. And like, that'd be cool. Like, if music is so special that way, because it's like I was 30 something and he was 20 or whatever, you know, but it's like you feel like so close, you know. Like, skateboarding's another universe where I think you get these kind of like cross-generational friendships, and it's just, so I was like, dude, this kid needs this, like, this, I'd never call him a kid, this dude needs to see Detroit. Like, it's like, what else are we gonna do? We're just fucking studio rats. Like, it's gray all day in Detroit. What are you gonna see? It's like he gets to Detroit, you know, it's like, what the hell are you gonna do in Detroit? You know, it's fun to drive around and smoke weed, listen to music and shit, but it's not like. So of course we just studio ratted it. got into that, and it was another situation where yeah, just a great voice. He had this voice that the thing I saw in him, so as the director part of that was, I was like, man, he's singing so hard when you see him live in Tucson. He's part of this youth movement. People are moshing to their rap. It's so fucking heavy. They got this whole young thing going on in Tucson that was just like, fuck yeah, this is amazing, you know. But then then I would hear some of his tracks where he's singing it. He was like singing like doo-wop rap and this like smoky, breathy voice. And I was like, this is the place where I can help him as an artist, is like help him develop this kind of other voice he has going. So when he got to Detroit, you know, and we started to fuck around with the instruments at the studio, kind of already had in my head of like, let's kind of let him do his like psychedelic, you know, rap thing, but like it can be a little bit more like retro soft than, I mean, he just grew up in a heavy situation in Tucson. So like his rap prior to that point, it's psychedelic, but there was a heaviness to it. And I was like, you're on vacation in Detroit. Like, let's make this explore your artistry from a little bit different of an angle.
Right. Also, I completely butchered his name, and I'm sorry about that.
No, everybody says that. I think that's a good, fine way to pronounce. I just thought you were pronouncing it because it helps people be like, it's spiritual, not just spiritual stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because like, because I've never said his name out loud before.
Yeah. Nobody. So yeah, that was just a great fucking project where it was like you making something with your friend and it ends up being more special than you thought it maybe was going to be, and it just had a whole look and feel to it to me. So I was, hey, you know, it's a small project, but it's one of those ones that it's maybe small in what people would think of it in the big terms of rap, but to me it was like it really had a lot of like intention behind it.
Yeah, like what would you like? Because because you're talking about like intention and mood. Like if you, this might seem like a silly question, but like if you were to kind of like give this a genre, like of like film, like what would you consider currently me? Like
it's definitely just a little psychedelic art film. And that's what it's supposed to be, you know, but it has like, it's the kind of psychedelic film that has some like heart to it. It's not just like a fly, like on someone's lip or some shit. And it's just like makes the viewer go crazy. It's like experimental, but it's like, you leave it being like, I feel pretty good. You know, it's a good trip.
Right.
It's not a trip that's going to change your life, but it's like, it's a good trip. That's how I feel.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like a good art film, you know, like, it doesn't hurt you. You know, I think there's experimental art that sometimes the intention is to punish in a totally artistically satisfactory way. But in this situation, it was like, let's stretch the comfort level, but it's going to be in an enjoyable enough way. You know?
Right. Yeah. This is not like a Gaspar Noé type movie. Like, no, this is like Irreversible or like Into the Void, where you're like,
right,
where you just like where like your senses are being like assaulted, like what's happening here. It's like,
yeah, or like Holy Mountain. I always think of the first, you know, that like we're just like I just like I think about I need to take 2 showers a day for like a few days just because like I feel like I'm covered in some sort of like horror. Yeah, that movie just makes you feel bad.
Yeah,
kind of just like I don't know why, it's just gross.
Yeah, it's gross and weird, and like I don't know, like I saw Holy Mountain when I was in high school. I only saw it once and I don't remember much about it. I remember feeling really crazy after I watched it though. Like
yeah, that's exactly, like there's weird scenes referencing all sorts of terrible things, and it kind of flashes by in this like psychedelic trance, and it's like, you know, Curlian's, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a psychedelic film that would be a little bit more charming, but my mind right at this moment to compare it to some Spike Jonze shit, you know, like for lack of a better phrase, like it can be mind warping, but like ultimately it has like some character and some like soul to it. Not to say it's better or worse, just it has a character based psychedelic thing.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of it's almost like a it's almost like a more friendly version of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like that's kind of
Totally. There you go. You landed it there. Yeah, next album, man. You got it right there. It's kind of Fear and Loathing like, but just yeah, now the stakes aren't as high.
Yeah, not for real.
The lizard people are cool that we met.
Yeah, the lizard people in the fucking.
At least they're willing to talk.
Right. Okay. No, I feel it. So in that case, what about so talk to me about your work with Chris Oric and how you guys' project came together and kind of how you would situate that.
Yeah, that's my only regret with that album is it should say just Chris Oric because I read that I was dead, and here's a great example of like the story behind that album is amazing when the I is Chris, like because it's such a weird story of like finding this person. He got tagged in a tweet, someone being like, yo, someone with your name died, and it's this weird cryptozoologist guy. Like there's a cool short story they kind of like brought me, and yeah, I had known Chris for a little while, and Chris is just one of the nicest people, super creative, super he really had such a specific sound, you know. And so I guess for me, like that's like trying to think what I would compare this to. It's once again, it's more of a short film to me, you know, and I was really much a director in this thing. Like I really loved the music I wrote, and the final product of it was like, it's like a little film. There was like a little idea, you know. It wasn't like I'm gonna tell you my life story or something. It was like, here's this interesting kind of peculiar thing. So I was kind of brought in to like score that one, maybe more would be my role in this one. Of like the plot was so there, and Chris had the ideas for where he wanted to take the songs, and I was like, okay, here's the world, let me give you a bunch of music that could maybe fit these ideas. And then so that was a cool project, man. That was really fun. We made that all in person, really, at my studio, and that was a really cool experience. I have nothing but great things to say about Chris.
That's
and
beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite song off of that project?
Yeah, Singapore, Michigan.
I was just listening to that one last night.
That's my favorite. That track's nasty. That's Chris and I. That's the one where I'm like, I want to make more records with Chris. He and I have talked about that. Whether or just make more music, because that was this portal that was like when I think I'm like, oh, this is something really. There's like a thread here that's really special with that song,
right?
And the story, it had like a short story. It's such a weird thing too. Another one where it was like this ghost town that was like burnt down and shit. Like the story of Singapore, Michigan is really cool. So it was a great thing of like, he had this story. I'm like, it's such a weird story. It was like, I wrote this smoky beat because it was about this town being fucking burnt down or something. So it was a cool ask as a producer.
Yeah, that was yeah, Singapore, Michigan is definitely one of my favorites on there too. And then I think my other ones would have to be No Place Is Safe and Wendigo. I think those would be my three.
Yeah. Cool. Wait, is Wendigo the one with Quelle on it?
No, that's Specimen.
I know Wendigo. Cool. Well, it's been a while since I thought about Wendigo. Yeah, Wendigo is a cool cut. It's got a really interesting pulse to it. Really foreign to the rest of Chris's discography. I think that's probably the main thing about that. I mean, that's just because Chris had this this drunk rap thing. I mean, for lack of a better phrase, I don't think he would see me if he was sitting next to me. I'd say that like there's so much stuff about like confronting his alcoholism with both comedy and realism prior to that, and like I just saw him more as a writer. So it's cool that we got to do this project where it still was really introspective, but it didn't have to bear the weight of like pain and trauma. He got to use some of his tools, but it's less of a soul bearing project than the rest of his catalog.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
he has one album that's one of the heaviest. Speaking of music, he has one of them that I compare to like Requiem for a Dream or something. If you look in his discography, something about drowning is in the title.
Instinctive drowning.
That's like literally like watching like watching fucking. I'm trying to think of the movies that there's some movie I'm thinking of that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in that just made you feel terrible. But it reminds me of one of those where it's a beautiful piece of art, but you're like, I just could never. It's well done, but it just hurts.
Can I guess? Was it Happiness?
What? Yeah, Happiness.
I knew it was Happiness. Yeah, Todd's.
Yeah, we're just so heavy, and I felt like that with that Chris Oryk album, where it's just like the pain and some of the topics of it. It's just like right there, not coded, not metaphor.
Right. Yeah. Like, and like Todd Solondz in particular is that kind of director too. So it's really interesting that like I never thought about, because like Instinctive Drowning is like also just not a comedic album like at all. Like it's definitely the most like his heart is on the table.
Totally.
Yeah, that's wow. Wow. Yeah, like
so as like the director or whatever brought in to do that one, like I certainly I had a lot of compassion for where he was at life and where I was at that time, and like it was like we can still deal with some dark shit, but like let's have some fun making this record too. We had a lot of fun working together on that record.
I could tell. Yeah. Like yeah, it's like, yeah, like this is definitely a deceptively fun record. Like it's just like I can't put my finger on what exactly it is, but it's just like it just feels it feels I don't come out feeling like garbage after I hear it.
No, it's the least heavy record in his discography. Well, there's some that are more comedic, so those are a whole other genre. But I think, yeah, this one's like a cool little like, it's kind of psychedelic for who he is.
For sure.
I always think I don't know if Chris has ever taken mushrooms, but like it's maybe his most like shroomed out project, because he's still very much not shroomed out, but in terms of where he goes as an artist, it's a little more psychedelic.
Facts. and now this brings me over to Small Bills with the Lucid, which like like if we want to talk about somebody who's like the way I like to think of a Lucid is like he rhymes like an encyclopedia took mushrooms. That's a good
way to put it. Like an encyclopedia, or like or some like really fucking dense like biblical scholarly journal, because he's got all this like psychedelic Christian shit sometimes, or like psychedelic biblical shit going on or something.
Yeah, that's
a great way to put it.
Thank you. There's just so much going on with his raps, like between like there's a lot of religious references and just a lot of just a lot of like worldly perspectives, like from like different languages and different like cultures. And like there's also just such like, I mean, like his music is black as shit. Like he's just someone who's so proud of our culture, and like loves to tie it as explicitly to rap as he possibly can. And like I feel like he found a really unique pocket over the stuff that you had going on with Small Bills. So like walk me through like even how Small Bills came together as like an idea. Because like this is
you were there the night. Yeah, you were there the night it happened. And it's funny, for all the success that project's been having, it's been an awesome project, I think, for both of us. Like we didn't really do that many interviews about it, and it's like, it's funny, man. Like, so we're at the show. He opened for the Lando Black Ego release show in Brooklyn.
Right.
And before the show even started, you know, you always see the people who are going to play the show with you. And the other person on that bill, Miho Hattori, was on that show too. That was a nasty set, and I'm obsessed with her music. But
she was great.
yeah, so Lucid just like he was like kind of like looking at me in the green room, like before the show, before sound check or anything, and he just walked up to me and just, it's the kind of thing, man. I'm gonna be friends with that dude my whole life, and I'll never forget. He's like, "What's up with the Farfisa?" He asked me, which is a old, for anyone who doesn't know, like an Italian organ company made in the 60s, really commonly associated with like new wave music, garage rock, psych rock. If you heard of Farfisa right now, like almost anyone would recognize it. It's really common organ, like an iconic organ sound. And I'd played a little bit on Black Ego. And, being the nerd I am, at the time I was at that point in my career, I'm like, I'm going to get the Farfisa credit if I played the Farfisa on the record. So the Farfisa credit was on there. And so he's like, what's up with that? And, we just like ended up smoking out that night, hanging out at the venue. It was at Elsewhere, which is such a cool venue because they got that roof patio or whatever, so he and I just like hit it off. And I had been at that point, Nostrum Grocers had come out maybe a month or two before, so I was already in on that because I was a huge fan of everything Rory, Milo, whatever you want to call him by. Rap for right now. So he started to just hit me up regularly after that. Sorry, my dog's messing around over here.
No, you're awesome.
He he was just messaging me all the time. Where are the beats, man? Send me beats and stuff. I'm like, what do you want? I was like, I want everything, man. And I really took that to heart because at that point in my career, I was already signed to Mello. And it's like, what am I going to do with my record deal on Mello? Like, I don't want to just make beat tapes, like that's never what I got into this for. So I'm like, hey, if this guy wants me to send him all my beats, I'm just going to send him all my beats for a while. So I just started to send him beats all the time and shit, we made, then he's like, then we're like, all right, why don't you come out to Detroit and let's work for a little while? So he had a tour. He happened to have a tour that started in Detroit, a solo tour. So he came out a few days early and we made a bunch of shit. And then we just started to do that throughout the year. I'd go out to New York and you just kind of chip away at a project and get to know each other as artists. So I'd send him like 50 beats, then we'd link up and we'd make a few songs. I don't care if he's not using them. Like a lot of them aren't done, like you just send people ideas because I had no barometer. Like you hear what to be honest, I haven't heard his whole discography even. Like I don't really want to hear people's everything when I'm working with him. Like I saw him live, I heard Nostrum Grocers, I know what the dude could do. Like I'm more curious where he wants to go as an artist than where I want to take him. So he had a lot of ideas and we worked for like a year and a half constantly and met up sometimes and shit. And it was the most growth I've ever had just via a project. Like I wonder if he would say a similar thing in terms of just like we really pushed each other. Like that was a fun project to make in terms of just like let's make a lot of music and not settle for like there's a lot more music that the two of us have and we'll make a lot more, I'm sure, but it's just like it was cool, man. It was really an album. That's how I feel about it. I learned what it means to make an album in a whole other way.
Right. And I can tell because like y'all gave yourselves a name because like you had already done the album with Chris. You did the album with Spiritual and those didn't have names. It was the Lasso and so, and this one was Small Bills. So like it must have been special for you to just like give it a group name. Like
yeah, I know, man. It means a lot to me. It gives me a lot of direction as a producer. Like you produce a long time to get to a project like Small Bills, to get to a project, and now that it's here, it's like I was saying earlier, it's like we built the spaceship. Now we gotta go fucking fly it around and see where it takes us, because it's a cool thing, It's such a I don't know, man. I love that project. Like I said, it's a career altering project for me in the sense of just someone with that much, and this has nothing to do with anyone prior or that I'll work with in the future. Just he's such a fucking you know, talented lyricist or dedicated to what he's doing with it. So he's a dense lyricist, I'll say that. And I think I'm a similarly dense musician in that, like, I'm not trying to cater to anything. I'm kind of just like off mining deeper into these things I've committed to. And I think Elucid's someone who we have a lot in common. So like we kind of found each other in some weird tunnel and we're like, let's work on this together for a while. So he saw a lot in me that I didn't know, and vice versa. And there's just a lot of shit on that record that I'm like, this is awesome, man. This is not where we started. We thought of this over a time period.
Facts. Because yeah, like for me, like yeah, like hearing Small Bills for the first time, it really like that felt like a watershed moment for you and for him. Because like because you know, of course he already has he had already had Nordstrom Grocers under his belt, and of course Arm & Hammer. Like so, like this isn't even his first time like doing the group thing, but like it really just felt like a watershed moment where like the two of you just, it's like you said, it just felt like you were so, it felt like you were just so in sync. And it's just like one of those lightning in a bottle moments that like one of those things that like, you know, like to kind of bring it back to film, like it's just one of those movies that like it doesn't like you don't necessarily expect it to explode the way it does off of paper, but then when you actually sit there and watch it, it's like, wow, it just works. It just like slides together, just perfect.
Yeah, it's so much less hip hop than it could have been in a certain way, but it's also like fucking a hip hop record to the fullest because he's like, but musically, I think, you know, like we all know who he is and those albums because like they're just so strong and they're so stylized. I mean, that's what's so amazing about everything with Backwoods. It's so stylized and you're like, oh, Elucid wants to work with me. I better make some dark shit. I better make some dark cryptic shit. And he's like, nah, man. He's like, and that was an exciting thing to have someone want to do that with you, you know, because that's what I'm waiting for all the time. I'm always here making music. I'm like, who wants to take what I have over here and mix it together, you know, and make something with it? And he had such a vision for it.
It's funny to me because yeah, like Safe House and E.T. Diamond are like two of like the kookiest things I've ever heard you make. Like Safe House is like I don't want to call it silly, but it's just really like it's almost like you ever see the gif from the Powerpuff Girls of like the fucking devil looking dude in like the pimp outfit like sliding his way into the club? Like that's what, I know what you're makes me sound like. I think of that every time I hear something.
That's a good match with that. That's hilarious. Yeah, it has that like retro campiness to it, but then like
campy, that's the word, yeah.
Everything Elucid does is so like it's like a Renaissance painting in a certain way or some shit, like an oil painting, or like, so to like pair that with like some fucking spy theme bass line. Yeah, man. Yeah, I had E.G. Diamond, right? I don't even know. That's a whole other thing.
Like, yeah, there's just like, yeah. So like to kind of like close out this section, like what would you, having done all this work with all these people and kind of looking at Small Bills as this like, I guess for lack of a better word, like watershed moment for you as a producer, like where would you say that, like where would you say that you are now in terms of like the way you approach making music and kind of like doing it as an experience in the way that you were getting from like your John Williams scores as a kid? Like how much closer do you think you are to that?
Closer than ever before. Yeah. And like 2121 was made the same time as Don't Play It Straight. Like there's other than mixing the projects, there's nothing really sequential about them. Like they were just made at the same time or kind of interspersed a little bit. Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest, like I have dreams of scoring films and producing records that grow with every project I do. And I think talking about it right now, it's saying it out loud over the last hour and a half with you. It feels good to acknowledge the sense of like, I think I've always thought about stuff like movies because I want to score stuff, or I think there's a lot that can be done with my sound. If it's hip hop records forever, that's the best case scenario. But I have some ambition to use the sound kind of world I've come up with for film, for visual stuff, and I think that'll come out even just some of the shit I got coming out in the next month or two. Just little like side project kind of stuff.
Right.
Like that's where I'm going, and like in the watershed moment, I think it just gave me the confidence, like that, like the ideas I have out here in my art space can resonate with people far away. If I just trust my instincts and stuff.
Right.
And like just having someone like, and who knows where Lucid's going, I mean, this podcast is coming out after, he's got the Alchemist thing, which is always, which is cool. It's like, it's just amazing. You're hearing about things that are going on in your collaborators, right? And you feel like honored that they see so much in you. And that was one of those things where I'm always confident about my sound, but the more people who explore it with me, the more it gives me confidence to be like, yeah, I'm happy with where this is going. And I love building all these ships with these people, man. When we sit here and talk about it, like this is my life's work, and it's always been about collaboration for me. And that came from like loving films and shit like that, and being like, man, it's all about tons of people coming together and what happens when all of us kind of put our mind and our energy towards like one thing, so it's cool that it gets to play out as part of my life still, like as part of my career. I don't want to say career because I don't ever think of it that way. Like my life's passion, is definitely rooted in like watching movies and shit like that. Being like, all right, here comes, like, everybody get quiet, like they really worked hard on this thing, show your respect or something, or a concert or like anything like that. I love that feeling, showing artists like the love they deserve when they've put their time into something. And film is a way I think a lot of people are introduced to that idea. You see credits, oh shit, credits, like that's a weird thing as a kid. Like they're boring, but you're like, whoa, you instantly know a lot of people worked on it.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, like perspective really is everything when it comes to that type of stuff. Like yeah. And yeah, like before we go, I wanted to touch on a little bit of just like I wanted to touch on a little bit of like film news, like super fast, because like
I like that idea. That's a good time. Let me hear what you're thinking about.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just so by the time this podcast comes out, the Justice League Snyder Cut will already be out. But like leading up, there's just been such a lead up to everything that's been going on, because like of course like the story is that like Zack Snyder lost, or he didn't lose it, but like he wound up leaving because of what happened with his daughter, which is like horrifyingly sad. And he's getting this chance to redo this movie, and like there's and like I was reading Ray Fisher's continued stories about all the bullshit that he went through on set with like everybody just being crazy racist, and just like Joss Whedon harassing people, and just like seeing how many different hands were involved with the Justice League movie. Like I was just wondering if you've been following this story at all, and if you had even like seen the original movie, and if you have any expectations for the Snyder Cut, or if you even give a shit. Like
yeah, it's certainly an interesting I can't think of a parallel to it in music, maybe other than some sort of whatever that fucking AC/DC record maybe that never came out, or Guns N' Roses or something. There, you know, like there's not a lot of precedent for like things being taken away and like sort of manipulated, and then being publicly having the stage that something does, like a comic book movie. It's a really weird historical art event, you know. It's and I certainly, I guess, when I think of it from the angle of him as the director and what, I don't know a ton about what he went through, but I know the basics of the story. It's like, I guess I feel good for him that there's an opportunity, because how weird would it be to get that far into a piece of art then and not just wait for you to finish it, just have it move on. Like,
Yeah, because like
that doesn't, like, does that happen? I mean, that, I guess that only happens when people die in music. Like, like, are there record, like maybe at some mega pop level, like Justin Timberlake, like we don't hear about it for the last 3 months of his record, like, you know, they're like, fuck this guy, we're finishing it without him. Like, yeah. But that's a weird, you know, I feel like that's definitely I hope that he has some satisfaction, I guess, for it. Just as I don't know a lot about Zack Snyder, but that sounds weird to go through.
Like, yeah, like the only music parallel I can think of, and it's even, and like even this one isn't 100%. Like, I think about what happened with like Mac Miller and Pop Smoke, because like the both of them were like in the process of projects, and then they died, and then John Bryan came and did Circles, and 50 Cent and the rest of the team kind of came together to put Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon together, and like. But like even that's not 100% what happened. It only
happens if people die in music, which is so different. Like if someone's dead, like sadly it becomes a tornado of things that could happen. But like it's just funny that he was just like dealing with tragedy, and this like whole corporate system's like, nah, man, you go deal with that, and we're gonna just totally take this and take it some.
Right, and
but,
like Sorry, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. Did you see the original Justice League?
I didn't even see. I dropped off at. He directed Batman for Superman, right?
Yeah.
I'm sadly didn't make it after that, man. I couldn't put in the hours, especially when you heard about the news that it's just this kind of. It's hard to go see any movie when you hear it's like, because that's actually weirdly now I think it's common in movies that you're like, oh, here's this movie that the people who started it had nothing to do with the thing we're presenting to you.
Yeah, man, I get.
I don't go for a lot of those.
No, I get that, and like just off like the general quality of them, like Dawn of Justice, to me, it's not a good movie. Like a lot, like I feel so bad saying it, but like a lot of those DC movies are just. They're just not good movies. Like, and it makes me sad because like you think of, like for me, like I think about like Justice League, like the Justice League as like an organization kind of predates the Avengers by a lot of years. So you would have thought that they would have gotten it right and like had it, and like just to have this, like to not only have it be a bad movie, but to have it be this like legendarily like spliced together from like 3 different creative minds, and like have it effectively like not even just like passed off, but like taken away from the original director, to see him come back and do this again. Like there's just like, I think that's what makes the Snyder Cut so interesting as like an artifact and like a pop cultural phenomenon, because like everyone has a basic understanding of like what bro went through. Like his daughter killed herself. It's really, really horrifyingly sad, and like he's just getting the chance to do this because I mean, it's mainly happening because WB wanted to play into the meme shit, which kind of, considering the backstory, it kind of sucks. So that's the reason they decided to do it. But like, it's like vindicating to see him kind of come back and get to do his thing the way he wants to do it.
I know. That part might be beautiful. The movie stopping you is like, for what though? You know, it's like. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's what a weird situation. And then there's a lot to like unpack with just like, what do we let, you know, weird swarms of like Twitter fans do to dictate actual like art making processes and decisions, and is really like weird and shit with this one.
Yeah, it's just setting a lot of strange precedents, and I want to see if the movies. I don't think it's going to be worth it. It's 4 hours long, and
It's 4 hours.
It's 4 hours long. They did a whole bunch of reshoots.
Oof.
It's because like, they were originally going to release it as like an episodic thing where like each part was going to be cut into hour-long chunks, but they're deciding now to just release the whole thing as one 4-hour movie.
Is it coming out on HBO or something?
HBO Max. Yeah, this is like the this is like the 10th one they've been building the whole thing around. Like,
well, I think I gotta see both of them. I think there's something to learn. Like, okay, you know what it reminds me of? And it never was finished, but that did you ever see that documentary about Jodorowsky's Dream? I'm butchering that guy's last name.
The Dune movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Dune, and you know, obviously he directed Holy Mountain, which we were talking about earlier. But that was kind of this unfinished tale. But I think there's something. I'll be curious to see like what a weird thing, you know? It's like almost like a remix or something. But the guy who made it up didn't do the original or some shit.
Right. Yeah. That was another really weird one that like I don't even like because like I don't even know what else to add to that. Like that's like Jodorowsky's Dune. I want to say Dune. Jodorowsky's Dune is basically like its own genre of movie at this point. Like there's nothing like nothing like that happened before, and nothing like that will ever happen again. Like
that one's unique, and it's like if the Snyder Cut didn't get made, but people loved it.
Right.
Like it's like he didn't even he like sketched it out, and I mean, he's an iconic person, and that's an iconic book, so I understand. But that's similar. Like Zack Snyder is iconic and to certain people, and obviously he's working with iconic source material there. So, man, I don't know. 4 hours?
4 hours, bro.
4 hours. Wow.
Yeah,
I just don't know when I'm gonna have this. I mean, I'll maybe have to cut it in my own episodes or something.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel it. I'm not watching that whole thing in 4 hours. I'm sorry. It's not happening, bro.
Oh man. This is Ben Affleck. All right.
Yeah.
The Ben Affleck. What do you think of the Ben Affleck Batman? Where do you rate it?
I think he's fine. To me, he was always one of the better parts of this whole thing. Like I liked him
too.
I liked him more than I liked Henry Cavill as Superman, and I like him just a bit more than I like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. So like, but like in like the pantheon of Batman, I would say like, because we got to think about it. Because there's George Clooney, there's Michael Keaton, there's Christian Bale, there's Adam West, and is that it? I think that's it. So this is going to be controversial. My personal favorite is Adam West. I love Adam West Batman.
Yeah, I love Adam West Batman too. I have a lot of fond memories of that show, and that's a fine choice. I actually think that's maybe the most correct. That's maybe the safest choice in this day and age. Like, I don't know how well the Christian Bale movies age if you really go watch them as moments as they were. Like, I think that Jack Nicholson one's pretty dope with the Prince music. Like,
iconic.
But I watched the second one, and it sounds good. Like Batman Returns, my memory had it all way better than it was. There's great parts, but it fell off a little.
That's the consensus. Yeah, that like there's a lot because you take that to like the Christian Bale movies. Like I watched Batman Begins again. Does not hold up 15 years later. I
haven't seen it, but I would bet. That's what I was saying. It's cool. You've watched them again. I haven't watched them again, but my wife and I tried to watch Dark Knight maybe 3 or 4 years ago. In the plot holes in it, you can't not see them, even if you're casually watching, maybe just on a given night. It's kind of just like, man, wasn't he just on the roof? Like, or there are these parts of that movie where it just felt like this procedural cop movie in a certain way that was exhausting. Here I go with my dog.
I get that, yeah, because like they definitely tried to split the difference between like having it be like a cop movie and like having it be a Batman movie. And I personally think it works more than it doesn't, but there's definitely there's definitely holes, and there's definitely like things that you can look at and be like, that doesn't fully work. Like to me, it like I would have to say it's probably still one of the better Batman movies, at least the top 3. But like,
totally. Yeah, there's so many parts of that movie that are phenomenal. That I don't know. I mean, he's definitely it's Ben Affleck's certainly better than those like the Val Kilmer Clooney one.
Yeah. he's definitely better than those.
I think he gets the win over that. So, and he's better than the other people at least in Batman vs Superman. The best parts of that movie, I would just watch the footage of Batman cut together from that movie one more time.
Yeah, like
maybe like, just like forget the plot. Let me just like see what it looks like when Batman's fight, and forget why he's in a dream that may be real or anything. It's clunky, but like the fight, it looked dope and he acted well.
And then the one where he's in the warehouse is really cool too. Like that looked like it came straight out of the Batman Arkham games. I'm a big fan of those, or at least I was a big fan of those games. Like so, like for me, I was like, this is all I want. Like this is cool.
Yeah, it really looked a lot like the Batman Arkham games, which that was cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, man. I don't know. This Snyder Cut will be interesting. You know, I just have a feeling that the people who demanded it aren't going to be satisfied, and that this story's not over. And I hope that like there can be some sort of completion to it, but it's going to be really interesting to see like, this is what you wanted, everyone. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's different for Zack Snyder, but the whole thing of like the people who have hedged their like internet lives on it. It's like, all right, I hope it's worth it.
I mean, like, yeah, like I guess we'll see. Like, yo, man, like this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking like nearly 2 hours to talk to me about fucking music and movies. Like,
yeah, dude, it's fun talking to you, man. That's a good concept and to unroll, and I appreciate you kind of bringing those questions out because they're really fun to ponder just creatively.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, yeah, like thank you, man. Like I really, like this was really cool. I appreciate it.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
Hey, thanks for listening, man. Shout out to y'all for making it this far. Shout out to all the black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell a friend to come through next time. 1.